Yeah. The game that we've got so far is really just showing off animations. It's kind of broken. There are some things that work and some things that are in development. And the thing about a game that's in development is it's not the game yet. It's kind of like, is it soup yet? And no, it's not. It is not. What you see at the bottom, though, is characters moving around, beginning to perform the kind of things they should do in combat and movement. If they're blocked by an enemy or an enemy building, they have to stop. If they can attack, they attack. If they take damage, they take damage, yada, yada, yada. But, there's only one character right now. The buildings technically take damage, but they don't look like it. After this stream, which will be short, I will do another stream for art and the things I would probably need to tackle. Let's see. The flag. Yeah, the flag needs an animation for hit. I have something standing in for now, but, that's really inadequate. And what I would want is something more like the pole is shaking because the pole was hit, because it's going to look like an attack was on the pole. Okay. I also want to do animation on our frames of art, I should say, on the tower, because the tower getting built is one thing, but then the tower getting damaged is another thing. While it's being built, if it's not fully built yet, then damage actually is probably going to do this. Visually it needs to do something, and I can't put an overlay of cracks and stains and things on the stone here if it's not built yet. So I have to think about what frames of animation I can overlay that would work at all stages, but the rule is going to be this. If the tower's not built yet, and it's damaged, it needs to be repaired before it can continue to be built. So that's kind of where we're at. I have that rule in place. Ironically, I still don't have an engineer. So some of the functionality for an engineer are in place, but I don't have the actual character. The barricade likewise needs some visual indication that it was damaged. And both barricade and tower need destroyed. They need, destroyed animation. For the flag, I think I can just lower the flag and raise a different color flag. That's fine. So previously we did some frames, and then I did a bunch of code off stream to implement that animation, which is what you see at the bottom of the screen now. So implementing that meant making some code for the buildings, and this includes, because they don't move, I don't need to move the buildings obviously, but they do take damage. Effectively, they are also combat opponents in that way. So they take damage, they can be healed or rebuilt or repaired. They can also be built up, and they also have special powers, kind of like the characters do. The tree heals, the mine gives gold, etc. The flag manages whether or not it was captured, and the game is done. I also needed scripts for the characters, and one of them does movement. And this is largely controlled by the player when they say attack, or they say retreat, or they say hold. Those three simple commands are enough to get a lot of what you see on the bottom. the feed, it looks like they already won. Well, I can restart it. And I will. I will restart it. As I say, it's not done yet, so me streaming with the game right now is a bit of a high wire act, I guess. Yeah, they won. They already took down the flag. So, if you look closely, you see the tree did just drop an acorn. This is the mechanism to spawn a new character. They come from the tree. The tree heals as well. You can see that happening. When the acorn falls, there's a moment where it settles and then poof. And then from the poof comes there you go. From poof comes the new character. In the beginning, I'm just giving you all the buildings in place. The current thought is that there are a maximum of 2 towers, a maximum of 2 barricades. That they're placed in this fashion. And the reason I say that's going to be kind of hard-coded is because it's easier to just ask the player to make a tower, and where the tower is made is already decided for you, rather than having to teach players how to tell the system where to put the tower and to deconflict places you can't put the tower or whatever. Like, it's just too much. Simpler to say there's a command called build, and you can put tower after that, or you can put barricade after that, and it will build those. If you have the money, it'll build. Speaking of money, so the coins are coming out of the mine. They actually are adding to the player's gold. But I'm going to start to need the UI to display, for the player, lots of information. More so than just the feedback information that we do have for, like, queuing up and things. This temp text display that we've got going now is not going to do. It's going to have to look prettier than that. Displaying how much gold you have, all that is part of the game. So we'll do that later. It's lower priority. What's higher priority? Well, I got the character moving. They do... This manages the movement of characters, and it really is straightforward. There's a target to go to, and the player can control that. By saying attack, you're saying go as far as you can, which means I need to ask the other player, where are your forces? Because your forwardmost force is the maximum place that my target can go to. That's where I'm going to go. It could be all the way to the flag, but likely there's some things in the way. If you say retreat, the move target goes to your tree, and they go back and they heal. The combat manager is made for characters as well. Clearly, this handles combat. At first, this was just handling health. It's just handling taking damage and displaying the effects you see when damage is taken and they die and things like that. And then I had to say, well, I want them to think for themselves, because my code effort yesterday was an all-day refactoring. Refactoring means it kind of is going to be the exact same functionality, but it's going to be done differently. In this case, it was the player script that was telling individual, actually 2 characters to fight against each other, instead of having the characters decide that they should fight themselves. That change now makes it possible for larger battles and all that. Here it is. This is the AI for your characters. The combat timer is like their brain deciding it's time to decide something. So when that timer's up, reset the timer. That resetting of the timer is also a subtle but interesting thing. It's not always the same amount of time. Their brain may lag a bit. They may be quick thinking. It just varies, and this looks nicer in the end result. If they're stopped, in other words, the movement script that we just looked at says, yeah, we're not moving anywhere, then their attack state is ready to attack. Default means they're ready to attack. Otherwise, they might be prone, which is done while they're moving. We'll talk about that when they get damaged. But then I actually just ask a function that I made to determine should they attack. This is there an enemy? Is the enemy alive? Is it in front of me? And is it in range? If so, yeah, I should attack. And it could be an enemy or a building. And if I should attack, then yeah, attack. It's not complicated. Given that there is a timer that could be more or less, then this very simple mechanism of, yes, you should attack, so attack, doesn't mechanically look broken. If I didn't have that variation in timing, it actually would break the game in a way that's a little hard to describe. That timing really saves it. If we're not going to attack, I'm thinking that's the place where powers that characters have could be done, like the engineer can build. Right? The archer can get up in a tower. The healer can heal, the wizard can cast a spell. But spells are specifically going to be invoked by the player. So, okay, if I do attack, and I'll just skip all this other code. See, this combat timer is really a Gaussian random number that I made up. But if we do attack, and we take some damage, being prone matters, because I also added defense points. So these little guys have shields. I think there should be a version where they don't have a shield at first. That shield is an upgrade to these characters that you can also command as the player. You say upgrade Marauder, and one of your Marauders gets a shield. So their defense points can go up, and this would reduce the amount of damage they take. I think this max is meant to say 1. This. I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute, there's an argument missing from that. A minimum of 1 makes sense, actually. Anyway, and in other words, your defense can reduce the amount of damage you're being taken when you take damage. Okay. Sorry, totally just said, wait a minute, that's a max function. Why am I not adding the 2 arguments it needs? In fact, why is Visual Studio allowing me not to define a second argument? That's really weird. I mean, if I take this out, doesn't it give me an error? No. What is the overload that only takes 1 argument? That's odd to me. Well, apparently it's this one where you can have an array, where I guess I just have an array of 1. Oh my gosh, that's a terrible, that's a lapse. That should not be code base. This is a mathf function. This, yes, Unity engine. Yeah, so Unity, that's an error actually. You should fix that. Okay, this should have errored out. This should have said, I was probably trying to just get rid of this, but I didn't. I just got rid of that. When I did that, this should have been an error, because it should take 2 arguments. This says, give me the maximum of 2 values. It's either 1 or whatever this number is. In other words, don't let it go less than 1. Okay. blah, blah, blah. When you take damage and you are prone, I say you can't subtract these defense points. This is how the shield is going to help the Marauder, you see. Prone, however, is the state you're in when you're moving around. And I'm wondering if I should also do it while you're being attacked, because you might also be prone in that state. I've seen skirmishes between Marauders already, and yeah, there can be like lots of Marauders attacking at the same time, so this might be overpowered. It's definitely going to do something, so I'm going to review that later, keeping that in mind, and I'm going to note it so I don't forget to look at that, yeah? So they can take damage, they can heal, they can determine if they are dead or just damaged, and the effects are spawned. This spawning of effects is mostly already on the prefab, although I do have to adjust some of the positions, some of this stuff. Tried to make this a little bit leaner, but then if they are dead, I do need to actually put a component script on the character to make it fade out before they are removed. Yeah. And by the way, I'm trying to maintain stats as well. So this refactor effort was a bunch of, this actually looked more like this. It was pretty gross. The refactoring I did yesterday was to organize, for example, who does the attacking. Turns out now it's the characters themselves that decide they should be doing the attacking. Before, this was called from the player script. So it makes more sense to just say these characters know for themselves if they should attack. That way you can just spawn them. The player then handles player stuff, not character stuff. We have character stuff. We have character scripts for that, yeah? Okay. Also, it's subtle. Again, the more we go into it, the more I wanted to fix these subtle problems. When you do the animation of attack, the sword is raised, the sword is swiped, and then it settles. That's what the animation looks like. And cool, right? Right? Well, that means that if I play the attack animation and do the damage, and play the effects, and play the hit effect on the opponent at the same time, they're being hit right now, which doesn't look right. Instead, it should wait until about there. And then they should be taking damage. In fact, I do wait till right after the swipe. So that's subtle, but it looks so much better. And to do that, I actually separate the doing of damage from the attacking and delay it. Now this delay timer is part of the refactor that I did, and the more I think about it, the more I realize it's not very generalized. In other words, it really is only useful when I know exactly what I'm waiting for. In this case, do the damage after the timer's done. But in other cases, you know, other characters are going to need other things. I had the same problem with the building. You're waiting for something, and then you have to figure out what the something is when the timer's up. And it's kind of, it doesn't work very well like that. So I will probably have to figure that out. I mentioned the building has a lot of the same attack stuff, or the combat stuff that the character does, but it doesn't move, so it still is going to handle the special powers. So after a lot of the similar kind of things, this is really all the AI it's doing right now. It's only the tree, really, that's doing something. After the normal stuff, I am handling the construction of tower here, although, I mean, this will be called by the engineer. It is not, because there is no engineer yet. But just like the Marauder can go to the tree and detect that the tree detects that it is near it. The marauder can, when it's free, or when the player has told it to build, and it is free and it's alive and have enough gold and all that, then it will go to the site and begin construction, and the thing can be built up. So it's like going to direct the building to build, step by step. At the same time, buildings can be damaged and destroyed in similar ways to characters, although I do not have the frames for this destroyed stuff yet, so you may have noticed. When they do destroy something, it just fades out. And there they go, somebody won again. So I have code that is looking like the game a little bit. And yet, clearly we're seeing the towers are already built, and that's not how it's going to be. I need an engineer, and then I need the purchasing of the tower. These are mechanisms that need to happen. So if I have the ability to take a command, build a tower, and I know how much gold you have, the mechanism is actually pretty straightforward. If you have enough gold, take away that amount of gold and do the building of tower. The do the building of tower is something I can't implement yet, right? And I can't because it's going to involve the engineer. There will be a character, it's a separate character, and it will be an engineer. But because I don't have it yet, making the code for it and testing what I just made in code isn't possible because I don't have it yet. Do I need the art to do it? No, I could have just like a white card that says engineer, and that would be fine. Moves around like the engineer would, and just whatever. But in this case, I'm confident that I know what it should look like. I know I will want the art, and so I'm going to coordinate the art with the actions the engineer's going to do at the same time. Oh, I should do the cheer. I didn't think about this, but when they win, they should do the cheer. I completely forgot. I forgot about that. So, so part of the art after these last building bits, I'm going to do variations on this marauder so that, maybe without a cap, without the shield, without the sword, maybe a hammer, a small hammer, and glasses, of course. It's suddenly the engineer. Get it? Later, I'll make a variation where there's a bow, and it'll be the archer. So I need to do lots of frames of animation. This is way more than the frames needed for a building. So these take longer, and I'll do that, after I do the buildings. If I get the buildings done, doing the engineer will make sense. But I'll probably just do that one, yeah? Okay. So, you can see the building at the bottom, and you can watch the behavior of the very, very simple AI perform now. Marauders do what marauders do. It's not complicated, so they were pretty easy to say. They will attack when you tell them to attack, and retreat when you tell them to retreat, and hold, meaning whoever's forward most stay there, and everyone else go to that point. They will hold when you tell them to hold, but right now, part of what is, playing on the screen is a test script where those things are happening sort of randomly and automatically. Spawning is happening on a regular basis as opposed to being asked for by the player. I'm doing this so I can show off the animations. Doing this so I can show off the acorn, for example. I'm doing this so there are other marauders on screen while I do other things like code. So you can imagine if the marauders are doing what the marauders do, then the engineer is going to do kind of the same thing, except when they're not fighting and we ask them to, the engineer will go to a site and work on one of the buildings. If you have 2 engineers, they could build 2 buildings at once. Rather than building one building faster, I think I want to say that they can do 2 buildings at once. The idea is, once you build a building, it's an advantage for your entire side to have that defense. But in the process of building, it takes time, it takes gold, and you have to protect the engineer because they are basically defenseless. They are prone. They also don't have armor. So it's a bit of a trick. And so I wrote myself some notes about what I wanted to test next. Temporarily test the building of barricades and towers. What I think I mean by that is I want to be able to say, build a tower, and it knows which space is ready to have a tower built. It's not already occupied. It's going to check to see if you have the gold. It's going to check to see that you have an engineer available. And I think the test would be that it would respond with, yeah, I'm sending the engineer to that location. And once the engineer is there, it knows what to do. So purchasing, building, yeah, I think purchase is something I could do right now, which is basically, I have gold. I want to purchase, a barricade. It costs, I don't know, 7 gold. Do you have the gold? Something like that. In the same way, you could also, I guess, test purchase of recruits. First with Marauder. By the way, Marauder is spelled this way. I'm spelling it this way. Actually, I think it's spelled this. Marauder. Yeah. But I'm spelling it this way because rawr. And I think I'm going to get myself in trouble for doing it that way because it's just too difficult to remember. It's actually a command, so people have to type it in that way. It's the name of the game. Yeah. Speaking of movement, if I say, I don't need, if I don't need collision, so to speak, I don't need physics. I need collision, but I don't need physics. I need to tell the marauder who's advancing to stop, please, because there's a barricade in front of you. But I don't need a whole physics system. Even the acorn that drops is not falling because gravity. It's falling because I animated it to look like it was falling with gravity and bouncing around. I don't need any more than that, which means I can save a lot of computing power by just pretending or, doing what is only needed, right? Doing only the part that's needed. In this case, just stop moving forward if there's something in front of you. That's enough of collision detection. I don't need any more than that. I'm pleased with the effects. I think it works well. I can move on now. So in the beginning, these towers would not be building by themselves, right? I'm just trying to give a sense of what it will look like when your engineer has done its job. In the beginning, this is just a wide open field. The tree is there, the flag is there, the mine is there. The mine is giving you gold. The flag is waving. And the tree can spawn, given you've purchased a new recruit. Wow, this dude is just going to barrel through all the defenses. See, I don't have a destruction animation on the barricades, for example. So you see they just kind of stopped fighting and it faded away, right? It's because it's going to play an animation and then those pieces that are there will fade away. Exactly like the Marauders do when they die. But it's a wide open field, and I don't need any more than the collision that says, okay, the Marauder needs to stop because there's a tower in front of him, and he can attack. That's all I need. There was an idea early on in the notes, if you look on Discord. There was an idea early on to have a small hill in the middle of the field. A small hill, meaning in those center spaces, I think there's 4 spaces. If you look at the sprites as tiles, the tree, the tower, these are the size of one tile. There are 4 spaces in the center, and the 2 edge spaces could have a slow slope. The 2 middle spaces could be up about half the height of a sprite. So about the height of a Marauder, that's how high the hill would be. But I kind of wanted there to be a hill to make it look like you can get to the center and you're kind of on a hill. You can hold that high ground, and it's literally just for visual, psychological effect of holding high ground. That's really why I wanted to do that. To do it, though, I would actually need to say, hey, character, or arrow that flies, for example. When you land and you're in the middle of the field, you're going to land on the ground that is higher because there's a hill right here. When you walk in this direction, you're going to have to go up a little bit because you're up on a slope. That kind of stuff is going to need to be, done more or less manually because I don't have a physics system. This character is not walking on a collidable piece of ground. I'm just saying move left, move right. It's very simple. So if I want to do something a little more complicated, like the hill, I'll have to have to figure that out. It's more fun than anything, but that's a thought. That's the only other thing about movement that I would need to do, so that's why I kind of just mention it now. Combat? Yeah. The archers are the cool thing that I want to do with combat next. Arrows fly, figuring out where the arrow can land in their range, and therefore what angle it needs to fly at, and what timing does it need to be launched at to land at that spot at that time. That's actually a fun math problem. Did I just say that? Anyway, it's going to be nerdy fun to work that out. Spoiler alert, some game studios actually use that as a coding test. Something like it. So, the healers will heal. And by the way, another refactor thing I did was change the name from priest to healer. A healer heals. Just like the tree can heal, like that guy just got healed right now. The healer is a character that can heal close to them. And I think, like we were talking about upgrades for the Marauder, they don't have the shield at first, but they can be upgraded. A healer could heal those right next to it, like within one tile, that kind of a thing. But the higher the upgrade, the more, the wider their area of effect is, the faster they heal, that kind of stuff. Toyed with the idea of resurrecting fallen comrades, but I'm going to say no to that. Dead characters are dead. There's already a good economy to respawn, so I'm not worried about it. And we don't want games to go on forever. We do want there to be some tactics and strategy you can employ to actually overwhelm the other side. That's how this is the only way this game would work. It's balanced between two players in the beginning, but a player finds a way to gain enough advantage to get the other flag. That's how it has to be. Oh, thank you for the chart viewers. No, thank you, though. And with movement and combat, that's most of this game. The building and destruction takes care of the rest of it. So once these basic mechanics and systems are stood up, what I can do is tune. What I mean by that? Well, there are some variables. If I go back to the code for a second. Variables, just like math class, they hold a value and the value can change. That's what makes them vary. They are variables. But for example, I mentioned it's really cool when these characters kind of think for themselves and they look like it because the timing is slightly different. Well, this, for example, would be an example of the timing for the combat of one character. One of the characters, has to look at these values and decide some value between them, weighted in the middle, actually, is the amount of time they're going to wait before they make the next decision. The decision to attack is based on this. And in our case, characters were also going to be able to do other powers based on this time. But this is something that I can tune. I know later on I'm going to want to tune some of these values so that characters could react faster or slower, or maybe have a wider range of reactions between characters. I need to see it play out once the mechanics and systems are stood up, and then I can tune. But I'm identifying that I will want to tune this, for example, and there are other things I want to tune. There's a brain timer like this for character moving and for buildings even. Buildings don't have a brain. What are you talking about? Well, true. But I also want them to look like they're varied, and they do actions, actually. The tree reacts, and so I guess that's an event. The player says, give me a recruit, and a recruit is made. An acorn drops right there. But other things that, like the mine, for example, the mine happens on a schedule that it's keeping track of by itself. The mine has a timer for like this. It is this. And I would likewise tune that one. And actually, I multiply that timer by a lot because I need the gold to be slowed down a bit. I've already begun to tune this. Let's just do this. I am going to tune this because I'm sure right now I'm like giving the players way too much gold, like way too fast. It's one of the things that a systems designer, and these are systems that make the games, game rules make systems. A system designer would identify this as an economy. This is literally gold, so but don't get confused. An economy is some resource that comes in that can be drained, and that means you need to manage it. This tuning would help manage it so there isn't too much gold, and literally that's balancing this economy. That's exactly what that is. If there's too little gold, you can't buy stuff. If there's too much gold, it becomes useless. Like, why do I even have this drip drip of gold if I always have as much as I need? There's a balance where we actually don't want to give the player everything they want all the time. So we'll find that balance. That tuning that economy is part of it. By the way, there are other economies. The Marauders themselves is an economy. The amount of people on the screen is fed by the acorns that drop and then removed when they kill each other. That's an economy. There are a number of Marauders, and then and therefore it's something to manage. I restarted again. So I had hoped that I'd gotten it to a place that would kind of be self-sustaining, but obviously there's not enough. Well, I know that one of the things I need to tune, another economy, is how much hit points do these towers actually have? I think by default I'm saying like 30 or something. It sounds like a lot. But when you consider that a Marauder can do 1 to 5 damage each swipe, there could be, a gang of Marauders, like 3 of them. Well, that takes them no time at all to knock a tower down. In the end, I'm probably going to go closer to 100 or more hit points on a tower. Towers are huge, made of stone. They take a long time to build. They're going to cost a lot of gold. So it kind of makes some sense. By contrast, of course, barricades should be less. But even then, I'm thinking like 25 hit points on a barricade makes sense. If the Marauders have 11, they have the most health. Like priests are going to have 7, archers are going to have 5, engineers are going to have 3, and wizards are going to have 1. Like that's the distribution of hit points. If that's the baseline of which I kind of gear the rest of the economy of hit points for buildings and characters, then I think, yeah, towers need to be ridiculous. They need to be 100 or more. If you have 2 towers and 2 barricades, and barricades are 25 each, towers are 100, you do the math, that's 250 hit points that the opposing team has to get through just to get to you, or to your flag, I should say. Not to mention all the forces that you throw against them to stop them, right? But if you're going to take the time and gold and care for the engineer enough to build a tower, and it takes that long, I think it should be ridiculous how many hit points you need to go through. So that's another thing I would tune. That's another economy. The number of hit points is a number, and if it's too much, you'll never get through a tower, for example. If it's too little, like right now, I think it's way too little right now. You could just kind of blow through the defenses, full defenses. These are 2 towers and 2 barricades right now. I see 1 Marauder just blowing through it. It's kind of ridiculous. So that's another thing to tune. Game balance is another way that designers describe that kind of tuning to make it between too easy and too hard for the player. If it's too easy for the player, that's one thing. Too hard for the player, that's another kind of problem. And in the case of a two-player game, it's very interesting because we're gaining an advantage of some game balance and challenge being tempered by the fact that the opposing team is controlled by a player. It's player versus player, which is almost inherently balanced and fun on its own. We get a large advantage from that. The other side of it, though, if our game systems aren't tuned and balanced well, then our players can be frustrated that it's too easy or too hard. Yeah. So, work to do. There's still work to do. I'm going to do an art stream. And one of the things I want to do, if we look at the tower for a moment. Bip bop boop. If we look at the tower image for a moment, you'll see, I mean, right now it looks like this. When it builds, you can see that there's like a ring of stones and there's a foreground and a background. And I purposely built it with a foreground and background in mind. Literally, if you take away one of the layers in Photoshop, you'll see that those boards, those timbers, are actually going all the way down to the ground. Like, I built this thing. And not that you would ever see inside, but I know that once it is built, for example, there's an archer that can go up into the tower. In fact, I want 2 per tower. And there is a door. If you notice really carefully, there is a door that's put on at the very end. That door faces back toward your tree. And what's meant to happen is an archer is supposed to run in the door. Once a tower is built, if it's empty or it has fewer than the maximum number of archers, it can hold an archer who's given a chance to do their power, like they're not in combat, they're not dead, whatever. They can find the forwardmost tower and jump in. To do this, this image, this one sprite, is going to be divided into 2. One is the back, where it shows, where it shows the inside, basically. And the other one's the front, the overlay. So the archer is going to run between these 2 layers and look like they're going in the tower. That's the image that I need to show, so that then the archer pops up here at the top of the tower. And by the way, even then they're behind the foreground layer because these stones are going to be in front of them. These stones up on the very top here are going to be behind them. So they'll look like they're in the tower, pointing this direction and firing arrows, yeah? So I need them to say, oh, this is the forwardmost tower, it's empty, and I can go there now. They're going to run back here, right around here. Ooh, sorry, my avatar's in the way. They are going to run back here, and then they're going to run towards the door, which basically means they need to go up very slightly. At the same time, they're running toward the middle of this tower sprite. And they're going to be in 3D space. They would need to be between these layers. And there are no layers right now. This is literally just one image. But there's going to be a second image on top. That is where the overlay is going to go. And this archer has to slip between being in the front, like these characters are right now, to being between the 2 layers. And so it looks like they're going inside the tower. A moment later, again, some timing, they will pop up here. And they will stay between these 2 layers up here. But the arrows they fly will be on the same layer as the characters and all that. I need to coordinate that. mechanism to get them in the tower and look like they're popping out to fire arrows is going to be fun to work on. I've been thinking about it. But I'll need to do some art because I need to actually get this separate layer as an overlay and compose it here as opposed to this one sprite. So once the tower is built, it becomes 2 layers. And once it's built, it stays that way, even when it's damaged, actually, until it's destroyed. I think an archer stays in the tower and it's being attacked until it's got like, I suppose if it has like 1 hit point, maybe that's the threshold of whether or not to enter a tower. Maybe it will, duck down here and then exit the tower so it can be effective. Otherwise, I think I got to show that the archer took damage when the tower was destroyed. I don't know if I can just let the archer, live for free. I'm not sure about that yet. There's some decisions about this, the rules of the game, that I haven't decided on yet. When a player says upgrade, they should be able to upgrade the mine, and it gives you gold faster. When you upgrade the flag, I think I'm just making it, instead of just 1 hit point, maybe just increasing it by a hit point. I don't think it does very much to upgrade a flag, frankly, but it also shouldn't cost much. Upgrading a tree, I'm not sure if that is even necessary, but one thought is if you upgrade a tree, you can now spawn more than a marauder. You can spawn an engineer. You can spawn a wizard, for example. But you can't do that till you upgrade the tree. Maybe that's a good drain on the gold economy, and I should do that to balance out that economy. Like a reason to spend the gold means that now this is more balanced. So actually maybe I should have tree upgrades. Otherwise, yeah. Tower upgrades, I put slots here just under the top of the tower for a reason. I want boiling oil to spill over when marauders attack. I want boiling oil to pour out of here and damage the marauders. That could be one of the upgrades. Another upgrade could be a roof on the tower, poking out way above. And there's a good reason for that. I'll tell you about the upgrades to the characters in a moment. Other upgrades could be a catapult extension on this thing somewhere, probably on top of the roof, something like that. And I had another idea. I forgot what it was, though. The barricade, I think they start out as timber, but they should have some metal on them to upgrade. There could be fire on it. There could be more spikes. Those kinds of upgrades would be good. I even thought of like, oh, that's what it was. The tower could have a moat, of course. Just a little pool in front of the tower. I don't know if there's enough room to show that, though. And I don't know how that would work in combat, really. So I guess I'll skip that. But the character upgrades, I mentioned this dude has a shield now, but these are all in layers. I can take the shield away, and suddenly there's a level 0 marauder. If it can be upgraded, say, 5 times, then we're talking about a marauder that can have a shield. Maybe the sword glows. Maybe they get... I was thinking about better armor, even mounting them, giving them a lance, basically growing them into a knight. But, start to think. It's fine to just give them some upgrade and keep it simple. But the other characters, the engineer might be able to build faster, might be able to build different upgrades. Like you can't do the catapult upgrade on the tower until the engineer is upgraded up to full, that kind of thing. The archer could have a better bow in some ways, all the way up to a crossbow, which would have less of an arc, be faster, and do more damage. So imagine an archer with a crossbow at the top of the tower basically doing almost a straight line shot much further than its other arrows. But another upgrade that would happen, I think, early on is a flaming arrow. That's why the towers could have a roof, because a flaming arrow could actually cause fire effects here or there on the battlefield, fire effects up in the tower, and that could actually damage players that are near the fire, you see. One could even argue that you could damage the tree, at least fire on the tree, something. I don't know. I was thinking about fire arrows, and that caused me to think about the roofs and all that stuff. So there's some upgrades to the archer. Upgrades to the healer I already mentioned. They can just heal in a wider area and heal faster. And the wizard, upgrades to do different spells. These spells that I'm thinking for the wizard are nuts. They're going to take over this rest of the screen. There's going to be the ability to like do an ice storm and freeze them. There's going to be an ability to call the dragon to do an airstrike, basically. It's going to be nuts. What I imagine for like the dragon airstrike is like in the sky, a silhouette of a dragon flying from the distance, like the opposite way across the screen slowly, is just like the foreshadowing that the dragon is coming. Then it's off screen, and moments later it comes on screen on the game layer, flies in toward the opponent's side, and from the center of the screen just blazes fire all the way across their side and lays fire down. Obviously damaging everyone, and the dragon leaves with fire all over their side. Yeah. Cool. Lots of ideas. I think to say that for now there's movement and combat of characters. There's effectively building, but I have to be honest, this isn't performing the mechanism of building correctly yet. And even the mechanism of spawning characters is not correct yet, but it looks like it. Implementing the animations is part of the process to get the actual game mechanism to work. It looks cool, right? Well, I think it looks cool. So, I did a large refactor yesterday. Mostly code, of course. And refactoring, like I said, it doesn't really change the behavior. It just makes it cleaner behind the scenes. How it is made is better. This means that going forward and completing the game is easier for me. So it was necessary, and it was a good thing to do at this time while things are relatively simple. That's why I did it. So, I will end stream. And I will pick up again later today with an art stream. Can't work on the characters yet. That'll be fun. But I need to work on these buildings first so that so I'm ready to do the things I need to do with the characters, especially the engineer. Can't build yet. Not exactly. We can queue, actually. This toggle queue is an admin command that I have, and it does actually toggle. So, can I read this? No. I can join the queue, right? We can list the queue. These are in place. Like, technically a match can start, but it's not exactly working the way it's supposed to yet. it's spawning characters automatically as opposed to waiting for me to do something like recruit Marauder. Like that. You know. This command isn't even accepted until the match is actually made and players are in a game. Right now, I'm just one player in the queue. That's different. So like I said, there's some things that are working, but these other things are basically just demonstrating what they would look like. So it's not ready yet. Let's do some more art next stream. And then we can implement more stuff. And I think it's looking pretty good for 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks tomorrow. I think it'll be 3 weeks tomorrow. Pretty good. It's a lot of the rules are in place. Sort of. The results of those rules aren't all in place yet. That's what we're going to work on. All right. I think I've done enough. I'm going to go, and I'll be back later. Have fun. Take care. Do well. Be good. See ya.